Hi everyone, good morning. So I hope you are able to hear me. And in the last session, we talked about ADLS Gen 2, which is specifically designed for big data processing. And on top of this, we are going to have many activities. So most of the times we are going to use only ADLS Gen 2. So I say 95% of the times we are going to use only ADLS Gen 2 for storage. So rest of the 5% will be your Azure SQL Server. Okay, so in my project, we are using Azure SQL Server only for to maintain metadata. So what is this metadata and what you can do with only SQL Server, Azure SQL Server, that we are going to see. Okay, so before talking about all this metadata, whatever the purpose we are using uh, to keep the data in Azure SQL Server, we'll see that. But now I wanted to say, if you wanted to store the data, I can store the data in a ADLS Gen 2 that we have seen, and we can also use Azure SQL Server to store the data. So here you can store only structured data. You can store only structured data. You cannot store unstructured data. We cannot store unstructured data. We can store only structured data. Okay, so it is used to store structured data, and data will be stored in the form of rows and columns we are going to have. And as per data engineering requirement, most of the times we can use it for having metadata details in the control table. So what is a control table? Also, we are going to come across it, and logging details we are going to keep in the same place. It's all depends. If they wanted to use it, they can use it. Otherwise, they can go for without using Azure SQL Server also. It's all depends. Okay, so when it comes to the platform of your Azure SQL Server, Azure SQL Server is providing in two different flavors. Even here also, we have a PaaS platform and we have a IaaS platform. So that means SQL Server can be available in the PaaS platform and can be available in the IaaS also. Okay, so PaaS means platform as a service. We already know it. And IaaS is they're going to give a operating system and you have to install your SQL Server with IaaS platform. So when we can go for IaaS platform and when we can go for a PaaS platform, I'll give some brief idea about it. All the setup, again, I'm saying, all the setting of the services will be taken care by, all the setup are going to be taken care by your administrators only. Just give me 1 minute, please. So PaaS platform and IaaS platform we're having. So in our case, we are going to concentrate more on this side. Okay, so we don't care about this particular part. So when we can go for IaaS is, I have a database in the on-prem, especially SQL Server only, not other databases. If you have a Oracle, you have to use Azure Data Factory. If you have a MySQL, you have to use Azure Data Factory. But if you have a Azure SQL Server, if you wanted to migrate, then you can use Azure Data Factory. Or if you wanted to lift and shift this on-prem SQL database into IaaS platform. So that means you are going to keep in the cloud as it is without doing any changes. If you wanted to lift and shift your a SQL Server from on-premise to your cloud without doing any changes, in that case, we recommend to use the IaaS platform. Okay, so this is not our job. This is not our job. That will be taken care by your cloud administrators and database administrators are going to take care about it. So I've given here to lift and shift on-prem SQL Server to Azure IaaS platform as it is without doing any changes. Then we can choose a SQL Server with IaaS platform. We are going to have a full control on the operating system. Okay, so in other hand, I have an on-prem database, but I don't want to lift and shift. I wanted to use platform as a service. When you have a platform as a service, you are not going to have all the features. But database, just for what reason you are using a database is important. So based on that only, they will decide whether to go for platform or to go for infrastructure. But from our side, how we can connect to this particular system is important. How we can connect to this particular system is important. So connecting to platform SQL Server or connecting to IaaS SQL Server is 100% same, no change. Even connecting to on-prem SQL Server also is same. We require server name and login details. That's all. We don't need other details. So for data engineering perspective, it is very much limited that we are going to use them. And in the past also, for reducing the price and all, they have given a single database and elastic pool and managed instance. So this managed instance and this one is more or less same. The only difference is you're not going to have a control on the operating system, and whereas in the IaaS, we are going to have a control on the operating system. Except that it is very much similar, and do not even practice this one. It is little more cost, very dangerous. Okay, so we don't need, no one will ask you, did you work with managed instance? If you know how we can work with the single server, the same to same, we are going to use this. There will be no much differences for working point of view. Okay, so in one of my project, we have a SQL servers and managed instance, SQL databases and managed instance, but I don't care how they have created or how they're handling. That is not our job. So our job is how data factory is connecting to that particular place matters for us. Okay, so when it comes to the single database, I'm just taking into further down. If we take any database from this particular place, we are having a two purchasing models. There is a chances to ask how many purchasing models are there. Even it is a completely administrator job, but still there is a chances to ask. So we have a DTU based purchasing model and vCore based purchasing model. So who will decide what type of purchasing model is? Solution architects will decide, and based on the solution architects, the database administrators are going to create a databases. Okay, so it's a different kind of purchasing models. And each purchasing model is having three different pricing tiers. Okay, so here we have a different pricing tiers, we have it. Basic is there, this basic is for educational purpose. Educational purpose. Or if you wanted to create any POC, or if you wanted to do some small testing, then you can go for basic. The price is very less. And then standard is there from the purchasing model. So the standard in one of my project, we used a SQL Server as a target. So in that case, we use this standard for testing environment. And for pre-prod, we have used it for, we have used this standard pricing tier for pre-prod. And premium we used for production. Okay, so I came across only DTU based purchasing model. And I told you in one of my project, we used managed instance. In the managed instance, they have taken a vCore based purchasing model. Okay, so in vCore, I don't have a control on it to see what details they are having because they restricted it. But in this particular place, I have seen because I had an access for that. So I came across that what features or what options they have chosen. And here I have a general purpose, hyperscale and business critical. Just have a look on all this, just a brief idea about it. That is more enough. because we are not going to be part of any creation. We are going to use them. But when it comes to our practice, I already told you this is going to be used for educational purpose. I wanted to be educated on Azure SQL Server. Then use this pricing tier. The cost will be very less. The cost will be very less. Okay, so let me set up this SQL Server so that you can understand. Not this one. Let's go to the portal, portal.azure.com. Let us go for resource group. Sorry. We don't need to go resource group directly. I'm just going to search Azure SQL. So last time we searched for storage accounts. We came across the storage accounts. Now Azure SQL is another service. This one we already seen. Now I'm going to take you through Azure SQL. Let's hit on it. Plus create. And now I told you here we have a single database and we have a managed instance and SQL virtual machines. So SQL deployment models, we're having SQL databases, SQL managed instances, and SQL virtual machines. So the SQL databases best for modern cloud applications. Hyperscale and serverless compute options are available if you go with the SQL option. And the SQL managed instance is best for most migration to the clouds. Like if you wanted to lift and shift your SQL server, then you can go for SQL managed instance. And this is also is best for lift and shift, best for migrations and applications running on OS level access we are going to have. That is what I told you. Your virtual machine is going to have a control on the operating system. Here, you're not having any control on the operating system. So these differences is much more enough for us. But I'm going to take you through only the SQL databases. This all is not required for us. Hit on create. When you try to create, it is asking a subscription. We know that whenever you wanted to take a service, whenever you wanted to take any service, we required subscription that I have selected here. Resource group, which resource group it is? We created Zoom Dev resource group. You have to choose the resource group. And then a database details we need to provide it. For practicing with the Azure Data Factory, you should know how we can create a SQL database. If you don't know to create a SQL database, then you cannot practice few use cases with the Data Factory. So because of that reason, I wanted to take you through how we can create a SQL database before starting Azure Data Factory. So database name, I'm just going to provide the name of the database is source, any name that you can provide, and server is required. Whenever you're going to take a database, we require a server basically. So this is a server. Okay, so server can have a databases, multiple databases, as many number of databases as you want, you can keep it. Without server, you cannot keep the database. So let's create a server. Create new. I'm going to say Bhaskar SQL. I'm just giving Zoom. Let's see, will it available? Yes, it is available. So I just gave some server name. and database, server name dot database dot windows dot net. This entire thing is the server name. This entire thing is the server name. When you see this extension database dot windows dot net, then we can say it is a server name. That is what I'm saying here. Okay, so inside the server, I'm going to create a database. So then you have to take from which location you wanted to take the server. The location I'm going to take a nearest location. If I try to take it from the east to west, it is saying your subscription does not have access to create a server in the selected region. Okay, so I have to take my nearest location, that is central India. In central India, I can create. And authentication is required. To go into this particular server, we required login details. Login details are required to go into this server. So that is going to be this one. Authentication method, we need to specify. All the setup will be taken care by database administrators. We have a Microsoft Entra authentication, and we have a both SQL and Microsoft Entra. I'm going to use SQL authentication. Okay, so no one will stop. You can give any kind of authentication. Whatever the authentication they provided, that authentication method we are going to use to connect. When you have a server, when you're creating any new server, at least one administrator is required while setting the server. So that is what I'm saying here. Administrator details I'm just going to give you. One administrator can add multiple administrators, multiple users, and so on. Okay, so without administrator, without this details, we cannot, we are not going to, we cannot create it without administrator. Now I'm just going to give my name here, provide the password, follow these rules and regulations, and confirm the password. Administrator name and password, and confirm your password. Let's hit OK. So let's take a development environment. When I take the development environment, you can see some change, but even I don't need to choose any kind of development environment. So server is selected, server is available now, and compute and storage we need to specify. For our own practice, we are going to use a basic configuration for educational purpose. If it is a company, you can go for different kind of configurations as per the solution architects. So there is a configure database. Hit on configure database. As I said, we have a varieties of the purchasing models. A DTU based purchasing model, vCore based purchasing model. Each purchasing model is having three different access tiers or pricing tiers. One is basic for less demanding workloads we are going to use, and this is best suitable for educational purpose or any POC. And standard is for development, testing, we can use it, standard. Okay, so in my case, we use this standard for testing environment for because we are having only a development and testing environment, or both are same in one of my project. In my experience, I came across that. And premium I used for production. I used means someone has created, and I've seen that what we used. I mean configuration of the databases. So the standard is a budget friendly. If you want to increase the compute, you can increase the compute. If you want to decrease the compute, you can decrease the compute. So the configuration or the compute and storage we are taking, right? So compute plus storage is going to be calculated with the DTUs. So DTUs means database transfer units. Database transfer units. DTUs means database transfer units, we are going to say. Okay, so when you go for basic, the basic is going to come with the fixed bundles of the DTUs. There will be 5 DTUs. The basic is going to have 5 DTUs. We cannot increase the DTUs and we cannot decrease the DTUs because they are fixed. So basic is a fixed bundle. Whereas standard, you can increase the number of DTUs to get the more performance, and you can decrease the number of number of DTUs. But this one is going to come by default. It is having 10 DTUs. Default 10 DTUs. That means you can increase the number of DTUs, but you cannot decrease less than 10 DTUs. Minimum 10 DTUs are required. You can increase and you can decrease, but minimum 10 DTUs you need to have it. So that is the meaning of this standard. And premium, basically we can increase or decrease. We'll see that so that you can understand how exactly it is going to be there. And this is if you need little more performance, then you can go for the vCore. Okay, so general purpose, it is mostly budget friendly, something like standard. Hyperscale, high scalable compute and storage. Okay, so when we can go for this kind of system is like if you're using business applications to run, then people go for vCore. If you're running an application on top of the database. But data warehouses and all, we can go with the premium also. It's all depends. Okay, so that will be decided by your solution architects, what configuration we required. Our job is how we can use it. But in this particular case, why I'm taking you through this is, if you have some idea, if someone asks about this SQL Server, you can talk about all these features in the Azure SQL Server. But this is no more related to pure Azure data engineers. Let's take a basic. Now you can see here, it is coming with the fixed number of DTUs. You can decrease or increase the size up to max 2 GB only. Okay, if I go for standard, you can see in the standard, I can increase the DTUs, but you can see minimum DTUs or 10 DTUs only. You cannot go for less than that. You cannot go for less than 10 DTUs. We are just going to have a max 3000 DTUs. You can see the cost, how the cost is increased. If I have a 10 DTUs, then the cost is 1400 change. Okay, so if the number of DTUs are increasing, then automatically the price is going to be increased. So at the time of testing, if the people are doing a testing, they will go for up to S3 or S4. Now it is S3. S3 is 100 DTUs and S4 is going to be 200 DTUs. Now you can see S4. I went up to S6. Up to S6 I have taken up to 400 DTUs I went to use. And once my testing is completed or once my development is completed, I need to make sure to keep that in the minimum DTUs to reduce the cost, because in the night time, you're not going to use that. So before leaving for the day, you have to make sure to bring this down. Okay, so that is the person responsibility. The person who is going to work is responsibility of that. Okay, so I was only one individual developer. So because of that reason, they have given all the access to me. Okay, so presently I'm working as a team member, as a team. So I'm not having full control. It's all depends on the project, depends on the role is going to be happen. Okay, we have a separate infra team is available, so they will take care about it. If I need anything, I used to ask them. They will take care to increase the computer, to provide the access, whatever it is related to infra team will take care about it. But here I'm going to take a basic pricing tier. I don't want to go for others for practicing purpose. Okay, so let's apply. And then redundancy also is available here. We talked about the redundancy concept as part of your ADLS Gen 2. So wherever there is a data storage, 100% there will be redundancy in the Microsoft Azure. So here I have a locally redundant storage, zone redundant, geo redundant, and geo zone redundant. All the concepts are very much similar. There will be no difference. I'm just going to use locally redundant to reduce the cost. Let's go to next. In the next, I have a connectivity modes. We have a public endpoint, we have a private endpoints, we have a no access, something like this. All this stuff will be taken care by administrators. In real time, we are going to use the private endpoints only. Okay, so here I'm going to use the no access. Let's go with the public endpoint. If you don't, if you give a no access, no one can access it. So I'm just going to say a public endpoint. Allow Azure services and resources to connect this particular server, to access this server. That means your Azure Data Factory is a Azure service. Your Azure Databricks is a Azure service. So if you wanted to make them to connect to this SQL server, you have to switch on this. Otherwise, your Data Factory and Databricks cannot connect to your SQL server. It's a firewall. Okay, so the firewall rules will be taken care by database administrators. Now I'm just going to switch on this. And we need to whitelist your IP address. If you wanted to connect with the SQL Server Management Studio, if you remember, we install SSMS. SSMS means SQL Server Management Studio. SQL Server Management Studio. And to connect with the SQL Server Management Studio, we need to whitelist your IP address. Okay, so I'm just going to say yes, my IP address will be automatically added to this server. Let's say yes. And you just leave everything default. I don't want to go for any other options. All this completely related to database administrators. Even I'm not aware of many things. Whatever I required that I'm taking, and my intention is to go through SQL Server is we should have SQL Server for doing Azure Data Factory use cases. So then we need to create it. So I'm going to create it. I'm going to keep it continuously. I'm not going to remove it. So my estimated cost per month is 465. I have a reason to keep it. I will keep, but if you are not interested to keep, you can remove, and every day you can create it before doing your practice. If you're using a paid subscription. If it is a free trial, you can leave it as it is, no worries. Max to max, you're going to get this one. And this amount will be deducted from the free credits. Let's say review plus create. And hit on create.
So this cost is same irrespective of how many times we are querying on the SQL database, sir?
Yes, for single user it is. If number of users increases, there may be little cost, usage cost. Or it may go for slow down. So when it goes to slow down, then you will go for increasing, right?
Yeah.
For
Say for
single
example,
user,
through
for 2 or 3 users, that's not a problem. We can use
Mhm.
because I did not check with multiple users, but I have seen one time I have given access to um, more than 30 members. That time I got more bills, so I stopped giving access to that. I experienced it. So definitely there will be depends on the usage because if you use for 1 hour, it will give a bill for 1 hour. Okay, if you use continuously, then you have to pay for an entire month. That is 465.
So for the first month, will it deduct from the free credits, sir? If we
Sorry,
have the free
can you repeat
credits,
again? Can you repeat again?
if we have that free credits, right? So will
Okay.
it deduct from it, or we need to
It
pay
takes
one
from
more?
there only, from free credits only. It will not charge.
Okay.
Once free trial is completed, then you have to accept I'm going to take paid subscription. Then they will start giving a bill.
Okay. But default they don't charge, right?
No, no.
We
Until
accept.
unless you accept, they don't charge.
Yeah. Okay. So if you don't want to continue to the billing mode, right? So how we can? Is there any option to disable it or delete it?
Delete it only. No disable option we have.
Okay.
So if we delete the resource group, then all the services which will
All
be
the
added,
services will go off.
so all the services will be deleted.
Yes. Even previously, I used to remove the resource group, and every day I used to set up all the stuff. But it is killing at least 5 to 10 minutes in the initial starting of the session. So I was like, I feel, why don't we pay? Like if I pay, I can keep all the resources and I can start directly the session, so that I can save the 10 minutes every day. So because of that reason, I'm keeping all my services together as it is. If I don't use continuously for a week, then I used to remove it. Now the SQL Server is available. Let's go to resource. Your server name is available here. You can see I can take the server name, and if I wanted to connect to this SQL Server, we have a multiple options to connect it. So here you can see I'm having a server and I'm trying to connect my database called source database. To connect to this server, to connect to this database, you can use a SQL Server Management Studio. You can use Azure Data Studio. You can use Azure Portal Client, and you can use Azure Data Factory and Azure Databricks. These two we'll see when the time comes. And I'm going to take you through either one of them. Out of these two, either one of them you can choose. And this is, I don't recommend you to use this Azure portal. Okay, so if you're not having SQL Server Management Studio, that means if your system is not allowing you to install SQL Server Management Studio, because they're giving for only Windows operating system. So that is the problem. So in that case, you can use Azure portal. You can use the Azure portal in that case. But I'll show you how we can connect with the Azure portal and how we can connect with the SQL Server Management Studio. Let's go to the portal. I'm just going to say there is a query editor. Maybe in the future we may get much more flexible tool. It is under preview. Let me hit on the query editor. It is asking SQL authentication or Microsoft Entra authentication. If you choose Microsoft Entra authentication, then your server should be enabled for Microsoft Entra authentication. So I'm going to take SQL Server authentication here. I'm just going to say password and hit OK. So now you can see tables, views, procedures, and so on. So I don't have any tables here at this point of time. I'm going to create a table. Just for understanding, I'm just going to create a table. We are going to have a SQL sessions. You can go through that SQL sessions to understand. But let me create a table here. Create table. Table name, I'm just taking customer. And I'm just going to say customer ID of type integer, customer name, varchar 100, and customer sales, money data type. So do not worry about what is this create table, all this stuff. You will get to know later. At this point of time, my intention is how we can connect to the SQL Server is much more important for me now. So I'm not here to explain about all this stuff. Okay, so we connected and we can run this one. Now, if I refresh this, you can see the SQL Server. I mean, it's a table you can see here. and table is having these 3 columns. If you are not able to install SQL Server Management Studio, you can use this query editor. You can use this query editor to write a SQL queries. We have a limited options here. That is the only difference. Now I wanted to connect to the same server. I wanted to connect to the same server with SQL Server Management Studio. I'm just duplicating this tab. Let's go to the overview. You can find there is a server name. Take a server name. Open SQL Server Management Studio. Open SQL Server Management Studio. If it is installed in your system, I wanted to connect it. So it is asking server type. What is the server type? Database. Server name. Just enter whatever the server name they have given. What is the authentication method they're using? They will provide. Database administrators provide what authentication method we are using and server details, database details, and so on. Okay, so login name is Bhaskar. You can enter your login name and you can provide your password, whatever the password they have given, and hit on connect. Let's expand it. Expand the database. Expand the tables folder. You can see many folders here. Many options you can see. But whereas in the here in a tables, you have only table on. Not much more options you can see. But here you can see. Okay, we have other options also in the same place. So because of that reason, SQL Server Management Studio, people are going to use frequently. Okay, so it was there right from the SQL Server was introduced. Let it expand. And this, yeah. So now customer table is there. Right click on it. Select top 1000. Most of you may be aware of this SSMS. Now I'm not having any data here. I'm just going to insert some data here. Insert into customer values 101 Bhaskar and 1000. I'm just inserting one record here. Now you can execute the select statement and say there is a one record. The same thing is going to be happened even if I go and see here also. Select star from customer. Let's say select that particular statement and execute, and you can see the data here also. Okay. Okay, you can also see the data, same data here. That is how we are going to interact with the SQL Server. Okay, so I have given some note here, standard. We have used this in a pre-prod. By default, it's going to have a 10 DTUs, and we can increase up to, I used to increase up to S4 and S6. Only one time only I went up to S6. But again, you can have a up to 3000 DTUs you can add if it is a standard. So if you have any urgency to test to bring the logic into production, okay, so this problem one time I faced, so that time I went for 1024 DTUs. It's all depends how many number of DTUs you require, you can increase. But if you go for this much number, then you need to check with your manager before increasing, because the cost is very important. You cannot increase as your own. Okay, so once that is so once this is completed, then we need to make sure to downgrade this to a minimum number of DTUs. You cannot keep the 1024 DTUs continuously. If it is a production, yes, you have to keep it at higher level. If it is not a production, then you have to increase when you required and you have to decrease when it is not required. So that kind of activities that you have to do it from your side. Okay. So that is about your SQL Server, Azure SQL Server. Okay, so SQL sessions we're having. Okay, so SQL sessions I recommended to go with recording. I have a recording for SQL. The reason why I'm saying is at the time of Spark, we are going to say Spark SQL. Okay, so Spark SQL is equal to SQL. Both are same. There is a slight difference you can feel, but most of the things are very much similar. So I'm going to cover the SQL as part of the Spark SQL. So since they are saying, just have a look on the recording. Okay, I'll tell you how you can access them and complete them while talking with the data factory. And when we come across the Spark SQL, you feel it is very simple and very easy. Okay. So from next session, we are going to start talking about our main Azure data engineering service, that is Azure Data Factory. So Azure Data Factory is very, very, very important for data ingestion and data orchestration. For two purposes, we are going to use very frequently in the market. One is data ingestion and other is data orchestration. For data transformation, we are going to use Azure Databricks. Okay, so as per the market standards, I'm going to follow to take you through the services, and we can do the data transformations with the data factory, but market is not ready to use. So please concentrate in that particular place. You have to concentrate on the Databricks. So we are going to see. So right from the setting of the environment and how we can create a step-by-step the components of the data factory, components of integration runtimes, all we are going to discuss in the data factory. Okay, so how we can create a dynamic variables, or how we can create a data-driven pipelines. So metadata driven pipelines we used to call, that is very, very important. So that we are going to see as part of our data factory journey. Okay, so I'm stopping here. If you have any question, you can ask.
Sir, can we have that PDF access?
Yeah, so today I'll do one thing. I'll you already said payment snips, right? I'll give a WhatsApp group. I'll create and I'll say to individuals, you can join in that group, and you have to share your Gmail account to me. Then I'll set up all the stuff by today itself, because tomorrow and after tomorrow I'm going to be out of the station. So I'll do it today itself. You can have all the access.
Okay, that first 5 classes also recordings also will be
Yes,
in your website.
all together will be at one place. You don't need to go for links.
Yeah.
Okay.
So tomorrow we have a session or not?
No, tomorrow I'm not going to have it. I'm going to be out of the station.
So on Monday only.
Yes, on Monday.
Okay.
Okay. Any other question? And you have to join in the WhatsApp group for easy communication. If something is happened, then I'll keep in the group. Okay. Okay, then. Any other question before stopping? Still I have a time. 10 more minutes. You're following with me, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the main sessions are going to start from the next session. That is very, very, very important. We cannot avoid data factory, we cannot avoid Databricks. But creating of all the services we can avoid in real time. But if you want to practice, you have to know all this setup also. Okay, so okay, then we'll stop here and we'll see in the next session. Thank you for joining.